Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, very, very good question.
Yeah, this is a very good question.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Oh, that's a great question.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Zanger.
It's a great question. It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Really good question.
Gosh, this question to me, I hate this question.
That's a loaded question. But okay.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your support of indie agency news. And let's meet an indie agency. We go down to Los Angeles, Culver City, technically, but that's a technicality as I run out of air. Zambezi. We got Laura, we got Matt, we got Alex. Super stoked to have you on. First of all, thank you so much for supporting this little schmutz. And it's really this agency has a very, very interesting backstory. Which of you wants to give us a quick little thumbnail?
I'm the oldest.
You're okay, so you're the old head. You're
I shouldn't say that, but I'm gonna say that.
He meant to say the wisest.
So
No.
yeah,
He's old.
You give me way too much credit.
Alex, look, you and me, buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got a little. It gets a little bigger every year. It's all
right.
Good.
Now, break it down for us, man, because it
I
is.
barely remember it. If I forget some of the names, but yeah. So we were founded in around 2007, 2008. A couple of folks from Wyden and Kennedy, an agency that people might have heard of, and Kobe Bryant, another guy that people might have heard of. Decided to move from Portland down to LA and start an ad agency. Kobe was always a big fan of that kind of business and the marketing and the creativity. And he and a couple of young guys from Wyden started this agency. And for a while, we sort of concentrated in that realm of sport and culture. First big client, I believe, just before I got here was Vitamin Water, which was
I remember that. Yeah.
Which was for an agency that was, I don't think we told anybody, but of like 5 people to beat out some big guns and win the Vitamin Water account was a big deal.
And that was pre-Coca-Cola too, so that was still Glacio.
No.
That
was full on Coke. So
okay.
So the early days really was getting in the Coke doors. Right? So we ended up doing work for Sprite and Dasani and Smart Water. We did the first Jennifer Aniston Smart Water viral video. That was us too.
Yeah.
Georgia Coffee, Gold Peak Iced Tea. So the Coke ecosphere was really where a lot of us sort of started and grew up, and in that really amazing sort of marketing world, and really like rigorous marketing, and really, other than Wyden and people from Fallon and some of those places, but really the beginning of Zambezi coming out of that Coke world. And some of those people now CMOs and marketers who we still work with today, but a very rigorous, very, creative, really sort of like concentrating on the strategy and the big idea and sort of those things were really ingrained with us early.
Well, and to clarify this, okay, so Zambezi is based upon the Zambezi shark.
Yeah,
which
that's a whole other thing.
Well, but it's good context because the Zambezi shark can survive in fresh water or in salt water. And
that was the idea.
The idea behind it, the original idea behind it was just, and it's a great code for flexibility and for the ability to do different things, which is the perfect broadcast segue to my next question. Every agency has a list of things that they do. However, there are a few things that generally rise to the top that you would say, all right, these are 3 things that we just know reflexively. These are the things that we can always point to. And then also, the agencies have a lot of really interesting work. Alex, you pointed out some of the work that you've done in the past, but what would you say the agency is best known for and the top 3 core strengths? Laura, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think agency is best known for, I think Alex kind of hit on it a bit already. The so the sports legacy is, I think, still what we're really known for. We're really good at it. We have a lot of clients in that world, and we continue to excel there. I think being women owned is another thing that's always been, it's been really important to us over the last 8 years, and women led as well. We have a lot of female executives, and I think that's part of our DNA, and it's important. So I think in terms of what we're known for, kind of sport and that, in terms of our core strengths, I think there's a few things. I think that we can really scale like a network in a way that I think is quite unusual for an independent. We are mid-size. But we're part of a global network, which allows us to really operate in a far broader way, not just from a global aspect, but from a capabilities, specialisms, and so on. But you're basically getting this sort of big agency talent is the way that we look at it. A lot of us come from kind of big networks with that more nimble, small agency speed. So I think that's one thing. Another thing I'd say is the integration piece. So we started as a creative agency, and that's still the core of who we are and what we do, but we added a media capability 6 years ago, which is going absolutely gangbusters. So Scale is our media agency, and then Finn Studios is our production studio, which Alex runs, and we have School, which is our social agency. So we really have all the capabilities that a brand might want under one roof, and our ability to flex between those is big. And I think all of that then sort of leads to this partnership and the way that we approach our clients, and we have long-term relationships that have been built over time. And I think it's something about being part of an indie. We're all hustling every day. We put a lot of care into our agency, into what we do, and that then translates out into the care that we put towards our brands. And I think that makes us different.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the evolution of the media practice with Scale, and then the folks that you have in School are really, really sharp and just really talented. Yeah. And then Finn's been on a tear recently. I know that Finn, the great Tennis Channel work, Warm and Fuzzy, still one of my favorite things. Oh, I'm not going to bullshit people publicly. It's one of my favorite things. Michael Todd, players, and beautiful set design and production design. It's great. I mean, and I think it brings up a really important point. That is perfect for the Tennis Channel. That wouldn't be perfect for every other brand, but you also know that, and you know that extraordinarily well. So it really fits incredibly well with that. And I think part of being independent is maybe experimenting and being a little bit more aggressive in areas. And Bob, I'm going to go over to you. Why is being indie so important?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you just hit on, which is authenticity, is super important, right? Like, I think about, we work with a lot of athletes and celebrities, and I think us understanding kind of like that world really well and being focused and specialized in doing that really well, we get to show up, whether it's with Scotty Scheffler or whether Dwayne Johnson or Jen Gardner, understanding kind of who they are in their brand, and specifically just bringing out the honest truth about how they show up in that world. I also think we work with a lot of big clients, right? We work with Under Armour and Bose, but we also work with a lot of mid-market clients. And us being the size that we are, small to mid-size agency, indie, we have that fight. We have a little bit of that ambition that some of those mid-market clients have. So whether you're 100 million in revenue, 200 mil, 300 mil in revenue, brands like Once Upon a Farm, Jinx, Solo Stove, I think we understand the ambition and have that same drive for growth. And so as they're looking to kind of catapult into the next world or realm of brand building and advertising, we kind of understand that passion, and we work with them to get there, because we're matching their kind of head height, and we're matching where they are in their world and realm.
Here's what's interesting too. And so going back to when Kobe was one of the co-founders, it occurs to me right now, as you were rattling off, like, we've worked with so-and-so. If you're a brand that works with a big time celebrity, Zambezi knows how to handle that, because not every agency can say that they can handle that. I'm just going through in my head saying, oh my gosh, yes, you've worked with Dwayne Johnson, you've worked with like an incredible amount of elite athletes.
Yeah.
And that to me, that feels, I would think for a brand, you would a brand say, well, we really want to work with this. Like Jinx is Chris Evans. So, you know, we're working with, and Jennifer Gardner is, you know, obviously Once Upon a Farm. And so being able to have the confidence and really, I got to think for a brand that just thinking, gee, we really want to work with a celebrity, but we don't know how to handle it. You'd probably want to be the first call.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to a couple of different things. One is to kind of what Barbara was saying there about authenticity and in terms of the actual creative and like writing to make sure that the work that we're coming up with is authentic to that athlete, that's going to make sense to them, like what really drives them, what are the insights behind it. Like that's crucial. And then, as you said, like how to actually make it happen, like having the production apparatus and the understanding to do it. I mean, you know, when I joined Zambezi, it was to run Beats by Dre, and we launched the Power Beats Pro product with them, and we shot with, I think it was like 20 athletes across the world to launch this. LeBron James, Serena Williams,
Simone Biles. I mean,
these guys, and they're all completely different athletes, but you're writing to make sure that every single part of it is completely authentic to who they are. And I think that's really the key. And I think that's why brands come to us for these kinds of things. Is like, that is our DNA. And we do understand that world. I mean, a lot of our staff are very immersed in that world as well, which is also crucial.
And even passion projects, right? Getting Don Cheadle to do a spot with us for the USGA, which is essentially a nonprofit, right? So it wasn't because he got a big paycheck; it was because he loves the sport and loves what they stand for. And we, you know, helped broker some deals about some things he wanted to do to help the sport be more diverse and be more equitable and things like that. I mean, we can partner with brands in a way that helps them get where they want and put the people who they want attached to that. I mean, we were a crucial part of Li Ning, which is a Chinese shoe brand, and their you know, we helped them put together the deal with Dwayne Wade, one of the biggest shoe deals ever globally. And bringing a Chinese brand to the States. And because of our expertise and because of our athlete relationships, we were really we're able to help broker that deal. And so whether it's working with those athletes or Jen Gardner or somebody like that, we do have that experience and have done that for years and years and years.
Yeah. And I think, but it underscores a point. Yes, you have this history and this DNA in sports, but it translates into other
culture. Yeah. Right? We say sport and culture. Because, yeah. Beats by Dre is not a sport brand, right? But it is a cultural brand influenced heavily by sport. And sport, again, like in the past 10, 20 years, has grown culturally as one of the main driving forces of culture, in a way that it wasn't 20, you know,
years ago, right? I mean, Chris Evans seems athletic, so you know,
Chris is good too. Jen Gardner was particularly
athletic. Yeah.
Jen Gardner's picking up babies. She was like, you know, soccer. You know, we were doing.
Oh no, I get it. Very
on brand.
Right, Matt. I'd like you to explain why we shorten your last name before we continue.
I still don't know how to say it.
The funny thing is, in sometimes when I fill out forms, if it's not like a serious form, I shorten it. It's just a lot to write out. And it actually started when I was at Leo Burnett. I wrote the short form of my name. It was some document. It wasn't a serious document, but it was just I wrote Baba, and no one knew my full last name. So since then, I just kind of carried that forward. It's just a lot to say, and I don't want to put people on the spot. You know, I don't want to make them uncomfortable. I make it easy. So,
how do you pronounce your last name and spell it?
Babazadeh. Babazadeh. Yeah.
Grew up in an Italian family, so that sounds like something with, you know, Babazadeh, bada being, baba. Matt, let's stay with you. And we've covered quite a few. We've covered quite a few things about this next idea. But what is the main reason a brand should work with Zambezi?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of what every agency does, which is, you know, obviously going into the strategic rigor, the 4 C's, uncovering an insight, working with our media friends, coming up with the creative idea. But a lot of times we talk about kind of what's the brand superpower, what's at like the core or the essence of the DNA of a brand that's super interesting. And it's not always the same thing as what you're going to say from a strategic perspective or marketing. So for Traeger, for example, like we really lean into their community as the superpower, and everything that we did from the advertising down to brand behaviors, down to communication, really lean into the social aspect of the brand and the community. Or, you know, TaylorMade, we talk a lot about breaking barriers and innovation, and how they're pushing boundaries, and that being something that the company can do in a sense. So it's, you know, a lot of times we get caught up in, well, what are we trying to say from a brand, but really digging into like, what is the DNA, what is at the core of this company? It's really interesting that we could pull out and start to move in other places of the company is what we do and what we're good at. So
go back to the Traeger stuff. I really enjoy, I like the work overall, but I really liked the TV spots with the little, you know, the fun little hooks at the end, the smoking thing, like the mom catching the son smoking, but he's actually smoking, you know, food. I like it. Those devices work, but it's extraordinarily well done. And and that's what I noticed about your work too, is that there is this breadth and there's depth within them. You know, and TaylorMade in particular, excuse me, we're going to cut this. Let me remind myself to edit this. So the thing about TaylorMade is that you've had this client for a very, very long time, and that brand's gone through a lot of changes.
Yep.
I mean, really, it underscores really the power of that relationship and what you've been building with TaylorMade during that time. So
yeah,
what do you attribute that longevity to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I think that the idea of that kind of partnership is really one of our big sort of selling points. And I think with an indie agency, with a smaller agency outside of and nothing against the networks, again, the relationships that we form and the you know, the having touch points with the executive team and with the higher ups for our partners and for our brands, that we really treat them like partners, and that they have a lot of access to sort of the you know, they have the day-to-day, but then there's the larger team. And I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in those big places, where I think we give a lot of hands-on attention to our clients that you might not get at a bigger.
Yeah,
I will say too, like a big part of it too with the relationship.
All of you jumping in on this one is hilarious.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, we're all very attached to TaylorMade.
I was
That's
going to say with that length of a partnership comes a level of trust, and I feel like honesty is a big part of it, right? Like we, you know, have been on a lot of different client conversations or different agencies and different meetings where people aren't really, like, we're kind of speaking, but we're not openly speaking, or there's certain things that we're kind of working around, whereas we have an honest relationship, and I feel like that goes a long way in terms of driving what's best for the company and the brand, and recommending things that we might not be, you know, necessarily slated for or in the pipeline. So I feel like that honesty is really key to it.
Cool. Laura, you jump in. Come on.
Yeah. No, I think the final thing I would say just about, you know, TaylorMade, it's 10 years this year for that relationship. And I think there's a couple of things. One is you talked earlier about that adaptability and flexibility, and that being core of like who we are. And again, that's sort of allowed us to evolve with TaylorMade over time as they've gone through their changes. But I think the other part of it really is passion, right? There's few other kinds of industries where I think the depth of understanding and care, like golf is so specific, and you really have to care a lot about it, and it's so technical, and we have a team of people who are deeply immersed in that world. If you don't get it, you don't get it. And I think we've really built that over time, and so I think it's specific to TaylorMade, but I would say that across a lot of our pieces of business as well, is like truly understanding the business and like what it takes. And, you know, Traeger is another, you know, example of that, of like really the team of like people who get that world and care about cooking, and it's like
very specific. Traeger is very specific.
Right. And so I think that's really something that we try to do, and it's something that we think about as we're evaluating, who our partners are. Like, can we give it that attention and that passion that we're going to get in your business and understand what your challenges are? And TaylorMade's like probably the perfect example of that.
I love that. Let's talk about talent. Why talent should be putting Zambezi on their list. Who wants that one? I'm going to make Alex do it.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought Laura was going to do that. I do think I'm happy to do it. I mean, I think, again, like as a mid-sized agency coming in as talent in whatever department, you will have opportunities that you probably wouldn't have at a bigger place. We are small, we are bootstrappy, we call it T-shaped, where sometimes people have to do, different kinds of things, and you will have a chance as a junior, mid, senior, whatever, to do stuff and to do work that is usually interesting, exciting, and you will probably get a chance to do it sooner in your career than you might have in other places.
Yeah, and I think there's an aspect of like my role has changed multiple times since I've been here, and there's lots of other examples of that within the company of like, find where you're good at and go there, and you have the, if you care about something, if you're passionate about something, there's nothing stopping you from pursuing it. Like, have a good idea, make it happen. And so I think it's really a mindset that it's something that I look for when I'm interviewing people, of like, do you have that sort of entrepreneurial kind of growth kind of aspect, and I do think it's different between indies and network agencies. Like, you just work differently and you think differently. And again, as Alex said, I think you have opportunities sooner to show what you're really good at. And if you have ideas, then you can actually make it happen, which I think is a lot of what young talent's really looking for these days.
It's true. It's very, very, and I do point to school, and I mean, you've got really good young, but also balance. It's a balanced team where it's like you got young, but you also have some really experienced people in there that have seen varying degrees of sophistication of the space. Let's move on to our little thought experiment, whether they're a client or not. Who's a CMO or marketer you want to say hello to? Baba, we're going to start with you, buddy.
Okay, just because it's fresh on my mind. I'd say probably Todd Smith. Right, because we we're working with them currently on some stuff, and just the continued push for innovation at the company, Traeger Inc., and what they're doing with all the other products, and the fact that we are being brought into the fold early on certain things, and the partnership there has been tremendous. So appreciate the level of thinking and the level of depth and interactions that we always have with Todd, and hopefully looking forward to continuing to evolve that.
Cool. Alex?
Well, I did hear Brad Haranga speak at Adweek a little while ago, and I thought he was really interesting, and my kid likes his clothing, so that always helps. But I think he's somebody, again, who sort of comes from a background sort of like we do, from like the bigger places, right? And is now at an up and coming or a challenger or just like a cool sort of hip brand that's not as huge, right. But that there's sort of like there's headroom there to make interesting stuff, to create a space, to carve out. And again, like I like to think of CMOs in the same way that they hopefully think about creatives, in terms of following not just the brand itself, but the CMO who is in charge of the brand and the marketing and how they're showing up, and looking at those people like, oh, we want to work with that person who sort of knows good work, recognizes good work, and so we can make good work together. Right. So I don't know. That was just someone I had thought.
I like that. Laura, you get the last word.
Okay. Can I say two?
Yeah, of course.
First one, we got to say hi to Bob Majori, CMO. Yes. I'm wearing my TaylorMade outfit. He always jokes that I wear the same thing every time I go to Carlsbad, and I appear to be wearing it today. And then the other one is Karen Riley Grant, the CMO at Viore. That as a female-owned agency that has a history in sport and sports apparel, and as a personal love for the brand, it's a space that we're sort of really interested in continuing to work in, and we've just been really impressed with the business growth, the brand growth, and how they've grown so quickly, and sort of would love to eventually get an audience with Karen. So that would be my second.
I like it. Cool. Well, I love the origin story. I love the evolution. It's all fun stuff. And again, appreciate your support of what we're doing here, and best wishes as you keep moving forward, Zambezi.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sounds good.